Welcome to Module 11. In Module 11, we're going to take what you did in John 1 and John 2 a little further. In those modules, you translated through the texts of John 1 and John 2, and we gave you study notes full of exegetical insights to think through as you work through those translations. In Module 11, we're going to ask you to work through specific exegetical questions on 4 different texts. We're going to look at Peter's confession at Caesarea Philippi in Mark 8. We're going to look at the relationship between faith and works in James 2. We're going to look at Paul's notion of justification in Romans 3 and Romans 5. And we're going to look at Jesus' interaction with the Samaritan woman in John 4. These assignments are a little more akin to the advanced exegetical discussions that are at the end of each of the chapters in the Mounts textbook. While you were working through the Mounts textbook, we really focused on memorizing the paradigms and the vocabulary, understanding the grammar. We didn't really emphasize these advanced exegetical discussions, but we're coming back full circle to deal with some of these things as we look at these texts. The goal of these assignments is to help you to think about the text exegetically and to begin to raise those exegetical questions as you engage the text. It's really exciting for me to see you take what you've learned this entire year and to put it into practice. You all have put in a lot of hard work memorizing paradigms and vocabulary. And now you get to see the value of all that hard work as you work on these New Testament texts. These are the types of assignments that you're going to find in NT103. And so these assignments are going to prepare you for next semester. And while these texts are shorter, we're dealing with about 10 to 15 verses. In NT103, you're actually going to work through the book of Philippians. And you get to see how Paul puts that book together. And you look at all the smaller parts that make up the sum total of that book. Now, to complete these assignments, you need to have access to the Mounts Graded Reader, particularly Appendix A. In NT103, your textbook is going to be Dan Wallace's Exegetical Syntax, Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics. It's about a 750-page book. And so you're going to work through that book in NT103. But what Mounts has done for you in the Appendix A of his graded reader is he's summarized that textbook into about 40 pages. And so we think for these assignments, it's going to be a lot easier for you to use the syntax summaries that Mounts has for you in the graded reader than the second year advanced grammar textbook. Now, when you come to these categories, we don't think that you need to memorize these categories. You just need to familiarize yourself with them to be able to identify the different cases and tense usages as you come across them in these assignments. And so what I recommend is that you skim through the appendix once or twice and just familiarize yourself with the information that's in the appendix. And then as you work through these assignments, you just refer back to the appendix as you come across these different usages. Now, for these assignments, let me give you a few hints. First, we're going to assign 1 point value for each part of the question. So if you have any concern about how many parts of the question that we're asking, just look at the point value at the end of the question. So for example, if we ask you to parse a verb, we're going to give you 7 points for that. And remember in NT101, please, no, TV, mom. Person, number, tense, voice, mood, lexical form, lexical meaning. And so for parsing a verb, we're going to give you 7 points. But when we ask you to parse an infinitive, you'll only have 5 points. Remember, infinitives don't have person or number. You'll only give me tense, voice, mood, lexical form, lexical meaning. And so for each part of the question, you'll get 1 point. Second, a lot of the questions ask you about the types of nouns. And so for these types of questions, you generally get 3 points. There's 3 parts. And so first, we'll give you the word and we'll ask for the case. And so immediately you should know what the case of the word is. You know the paradigms, you know the morphology, you know the endings, and so you just look at how that word is formed, and you should be able to tell me if it's nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative. Second, we'll ask for the case usage. When we ask for the case usage, you really need to have access to the appendix of the mouse graded reader. This is where you're going to get that answer. So for example, we might ask about lagu. You know immediately it's genitive. Then you'll need to go to the mouse graded reader section of the genitive and look at all the different syntactical categories that the genitive can play and choose the best one that fits that context that we're in. And then lastly, we'll ask for the related word. This last part can be a little tricky, so let me unpack it and help you think through this. First of all, think in broad categories. If the word is adjectival, then it will relate to a noun. If it's adverbial, it will relate to a verb. Most of the time, the word is going to relate to the verb in the sentence or the clause. And so let's think about each case. If a word is a nominative, its function is most likely going to be a subject, or if it's an equative verb, it could be a subject or a predicate nominative. And so in those situations, it's going to relate to the verb in the sentence. Likewise, if it's an accusative, its most likely function is going to be a direct object, and it's going to relate to the main verb in the clause, and the dative as well. On the other hand, a genitive is most likely going to relate back to its head noun, and so in many ways, genitives function adjectively, while accusatives and datives are going to function more adverbially. Another helpful hint is just imagine the diagram of the sentence and think about how the lines connect the word that we're classifying to the context. Now, one more note about this word related to prepositions. Prepositions will relate back to the verb that it's modifying, and then the object of the preposition is going to relate back to the preposition. And so here I want you to be aware of something missing from the Mounce graded reader. Remember back in NT101 when we covered prepositions? It's the preposition determines the case of the object. And so hupa will always take the genitive. The preposition in will always take the dative as its object. Then we have some prepositions like meta. Meta, if it means with, will take the genitive, and if meta means after, it will take the accusative. And so sometimes on these assignments, we'll ask about the case of an object of a preposition. And so the answer is simply, it's the object of a preposition that takes a genitive or a dative or an accusative. And so I just want you to be mindful, Mounce does not have that in his category. So if we ask you to classify a noun, you should know the case, and then you're going to pull your hair out looking for the category of which that case falls, and you're not going to find it. It's just basically the object of the preposition. Finally, be mindful of the due dates for these exegetical assignments. I've specified the due dates in Canvas, but take note that the due dates are staggered. They're all in one module, but they're staggered throughout the module. My goal is to get the first syntax assignment back to you so that you can benefit from my comments and use them to do the next one. And I'll get the second one back so that you can do the third one, and so on and so forth. Finally, note that with each syntax assignment, we want you to translate the passage. In the syntax assignments, there's lots of translation aids. And so you might want to read through the syntax assignment, and you might work through each question as you do the translation. Now, remember, just like you did for John 1 and John 2, we want you to make liberal use of BDAG. Make use of Buer and Miller. Make use of your Reader's New Testament as you're working through the translation. But we don't want you to either use a translation, an English translation or otherwise, or any kind of transliteration. And so focus more on those lexicons, particularly BDAG and also your syntax assignments. That's it. These are fun assignments. I think these are great. It's a great opportunity to kind of see the text come alive. And instead of working with individual verses, we're now working with fuller contexts. And so I enjoy these assignments. I think students enjoy these assignments. If you have any question about these assignments, please don't hesitate to let me know. And I'll look forward to seeing how you do on them.